All right. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Devin, for covering first half. We will take the second half here. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, welcome to Michigan Week.
You beat me to it. I was about to say, Tony, you know what week it is? It is the greatest week of the year. It is Michigan Week in Columbus, Ohio. Normally, when it's Michigan Week, it's like, okay, we have to spend 4 minutes, at least 4 minutes, talking about the game that just ended. Because usually it's, they beat a 5-7 Maryland team. Oh, they beat a 3-8 Indiana team. Okay, we have to talk about the Indiana game for at least 7 minutes.
Okay.
At least. Probably more than that.
Start the clock. No, 38-15 Ohio State. You guys saw Ryan Day there at the end of talking about the final touchdown and just wanting to put an exclamation point on it when Travion slid down and then there was a timeout or something. And then they went and did it. I turned to Dom Taberry. I'm like, well, Ryan Day always talks about you leave no doubt. And then I guess that's exactly what Day said in the post-game interview, like on the sideline with Fox. Like, yeah, we want to leave no doubt. And one way to do that is punch it in there at the end. I'm sure, Travion slides down and Ryan Day's like, no, we're not stopping here. We want more. And Kurt Signetti had something to say about that as well.
Yeah, I went up there thinking, oh boy, where is this going to go? And it was a fascinating press conference. And I would encourage you after we're done to go watch the whole thing because he said a bunch of complimentary things. He said a bunch of really passive aggressive things. It was a fascinating press conference, but his full quote on the final touchdown was, quote, he's got to do what he's got to do for his team. Quote, period, close quote, end of answer.
Yeah, it's true though. In this era of the CFP, you've got to make every mark that you can. And Ohio State certainly did that one, 38-15, as I said. The first quarter, slow. Everything else, they scored twice in each quarter after that. And that was even at halftime, even when it was like 7-7, you felt like if Ohio State would just finish, then this could go this way in the second half. Because let's start with the defense, Tom, because this was really impressive. Now, you look at the running game, and Tyson Lawton and Justice Ellison combined for like 140 yards rushing.
Yeah, on 2 drives.
Yeah. Well, and then I don't know how much of that is in the second half at the end, but they had 70 yards of total offense in the first drive, and then they finished with 81 yards of total offense the rest of the game. Not unlike Northwestern last week, who had 151 yards, which is exactly what Indiana finished with in the game. Northwestern last week had 151 yards on the first 2 drives and then 100 yards the rest of the game. After this first drive, they only had 81 yards after that, and they got after Curtis Work so badly that you'd have thought it was Curtis Work out there at an Indiana basketball game saying Ohio State sucks.
Yeah, I'm sure it was nothing personal against Curtis Rourke, but he was the poor sap who kept getting handed the football by the center, so it became his problem. That was as dominant a day from the Ohio State defense against a competent team. This is a good team, Indiana. What you saw is Ohio State just defenestrating a good team. This was not Western Michigan getting shut out. This was, Indiana has run it up on just about everyone all season. And I'm just going to read their yardage per drive.
Yeah.
70, 8, -7, -4, -2, 2, 8, 32, -11, 75, 3. That is thorough.
Yeah. No, it's thorough. It's emphatic. And you look at this, and so Curtis Rourke was 8 of 18 passing for 68 yards. They ran the ball 41 times. And they averaged 2 yards a carry, but it's like their running backs are averaging almost 4 yards a carry. But that's, again, I think a lot of that was on that last drive and the first drive.
Yeah.
Other than that, they were completely shut down. And you're like, why are you running the ball so much when that's not effective? But you threw the ball 18 times for 68 yards, so that wasn't effective either because the pass rush, it was what we saw this entire game against Indiana's passing game was what we saw in the second half against Michigan against Indiana when they just got after Curtis Rourke.
Yeah.
He threw for almost 200 yards in the first half of that game and then maybe like 16 or 20 in the second half. They were all over him in this one. Cody Simon had 2.5 sacks on his blitzes. JT Tuimoloau came around a couple times. Jack Sawyer, I think, had a sack and a half. There was He had no time in this one. And out of all of the things that Ohio State fans saw in this one, you might want to feel best about the way the pass rush got after the quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Indiana's tackles aren't great. Michigan's tackles aren't great.
Mm-hmm.
So you might see some similar things next week.
Yeah, and we're not through our 7 minutes.
Sorry.
You got to hold your water there.
I just don't know if we're going to get a chance to talk about that game this week.
I'm going to do a little math on the fly here, but 18 dropbacks for Curtis Rourke that he threw the ball. He had 7 rushes. One of them was that run on third down on the slide, so that was 8 yards. So we're going to 6 where he was sacked, presumably, or flushed out of the pocket. So that's 24 plays where he either threw it or got sacked or whatever. He had 68 yards passing and negative 41 yards rushing on those plays. So that would make it 24 plays for 27 yards. So anyway, in case you're wondering, Tony, that's why they ran the ball. Kurt Cignetti said anytime they, as soon as they dropped back to pass, it was like, well, something bad's about to happen, and it did.
Yeah, and at that point, you're basically like, well, we need turnovers. We need something bad to happen for Ohio State.
We need another block in the back call.
Right. Yes. They just needed some help, and there was no help to be gotten because what they had on offense was not enough. And again, they had even with Justice Ellison, running back, 62 yards rushing, but along of just 11 yards. Buckeyes tackled well in this one. There wasn't a lot of room. They started making some hay outside a couple of times, but nothing was sustained. And after that first drive, which, it's almost comical at this point where Ohio State is so timid offensively on their first drive, and you're left with like a 3rd and 5. And this week, we'll get to the offense in a bit, but it's just the offense starts slow. The defense gives up their 1 or 2 drives, and then it's like, okay, all right, that's enough. Popeye gets the spinach, and then it's all over.
Yeah, that first drive, the first drive on offense for Ohio State, the first time I thought, that's a choice, was Emeka Egbuka on 3rd down running his route short of the sticks.
Well short of
the sticks. I can't believe the play was designed to do that. You've got to, where the sticks are, you got to get to the sticks. And that ended up with a 3rd and 2 on that drive. So, there we go. So now we've talked about the offense. So now let's get back to talk about the defense. It is fascinating to me, Tony. Absolutely fascinating how much better the Ohio State defense is right as all the X's and O's guys are going, boy, Jim Knowles is doing a lot more of the stuff that he was doing at Oklahoma State. Mm-hmm. I'm starting to think, Tony, that Jim Knowles may not have been the issue all along. And in the words of Cousin Eddie, might be time to do some kissing for some Ohio State fans who've had some negative things to say about Jim Knowles, because, boy, Jim Knowles running the Jim Knowles defense seems like it's working pretty well.
Yeah, what I'll say is, well, let's see it in the playoffs. That's the answer there.
Sure. Well, that's the answer you're going to get.
Yeah.
Yes.
And this was Indiana. The offense.
Tony, no one's ever wrong. That's the important thing.
The Michigan offense, not the kind that can threaten you either. The Oregon offense, hey, prove it there. But then it's like, well, yeah, but you already played them once. You knew what was coming.
Right. That doesn't count.
Try it a 3rd time.
Mm-hmm.
No, but I think when you watch the secondary, let's talk about the secondary. Mm-hmm. And let's talk about Davis Igbinosun, who didn't have any pass interference penalties, maybe outside of the first quarter when he had a couple. Maybe there's another one.
There was another one at the end. He hit the hat trick in the 4th quarter.
It's bad that his first action is basically just to grab, and they're watching him now. So you can't do that. And they finally started getting Jermaine Matthews in there after the first quarter when all of that drive was done. But they need to go back to the mitts and just reiterate, they are watching you. So if you're going to do something, you may get away with it once. You're not going to get away with it twice. You're certainly not going to get away with it a 3rd time because they're throwing it. And other guys are getting away with stuff. You're not going to.
Right. Yeah. Everyone in the Big Ten knows, hey, this is the guy that does the pass interference. Yeah. And at this point, just about every crew in the Big Ten has probably called him for pass interference. I was going to look at the NCAA rulebook and just Control F boxing gloves to see if that was an option that you could wear those on the field during a game. I'm assuming it's not in there, but you never know. It's just, at this point, you have to trust yourself. You have to just trust yourself to be in coverage and not grab. And if you can't trust yourself to not grab, and the officiating crews are all looking for it, with you in particular, you're not going to get the benefit of that. There was plenty of other contact in passing situations where it was like, yeah, they could have called that, but you're not going to call that all the time. You're always going to call it with him because they're always looking for it with him at this point. So you've either got to trust yourself or you got to play Jermaine Matthews more, and I don't think there's a third option.
Yeah, no, there isn't. And the pass interference is real quick with the Ohio State offense. Jelani Thurman was hit right before the ball got to him. That led to the interception.
Oh, on the interception? Yeah.
Bennett Christian was tackled on the play before the Emeka Ibuka touchdown, which is one of the most blatant calls you'll ever see, unless you don't see it, which apparently they didn't. But they're not going to miss. They're going to keep their eye on Davison Igbenogson because they know, like, hey, this usually leads to something. And especially for the refs, like, I want to be seen, so I'm going to watch him. And then boom, I've been working up the shoulder. I'm ready to go. But other than that, I think they're very, very solid. The long play of the day, the long pass play of the day, 19 yards. I don't remember much of anything other than the third and longs on the first drive. That's like the only passing that they really did. And then Ohio State was like, you know what, let's change some things up. Let's throw some twists. Let's do some blitzing. Because that was the end of the time that Curtis Rourke had to throw, was after that first drive. And if we do some math on the fly here, I bet the bulk of his yardage came on that first drive.
It was. He had a 13-yard pass on 3rd and 9. He had a pass interference on that one. He had a 19-yard pass on the first drive, so that's 32 yards right there.
Good.
And 32 yards on that. Everything else was a run. So 32 yards passing. The two long passing plays of the day, I believe, because he had the long reception for Surratt was 19 yards. That was on that drive. The long reception, the only reception for Price was 13 yards. That was on that drive. Other than that, Surratt had 2 catches for 21 yards. Tyson Lawton had 2 catches for 9 yards. Keyshawn Williams had 2 catches for 6 yards. -30
so
as they say.
How many yards did he have in that first drive? Because the second drive,
20. He had 32 on the first drive.
Because on the second drive he had 18 yards. So 60 of his 68 came on the first 2 drives.
50, Tony.
You said 32.
32 plus 18.
Did I say 18?
You sure did.
All right. I wasn't listening.
Anyway, there's a reason Tony asked me to do the math on this show.
We did it together.
Don't clip that. All right, so let's talk about literally anything else. I mean, can we talk for a moment? Do we have a super chat? Let's hit the super chat real quick.
Oh wow!
Oh, Mike Ferguson now.
Thank you, Mike Ferguson. Super chat. No. Let's explore this. Let's really explore the room. Tom Moore is a terrible person. Google it. Oh boy, I wanted to get home tonight, but.
Mike Farino says props to Fry. Defensive line was fine today against a team that loves to blitz and stunt. That the offensive line was fine today against a team that loves to blitz and stunt. We're not dominant, but it was good enough by any measure. There were times when they were dominant because there was a point in that opening drive. I usually don't have a great sense for how the running game's going, other than like, well, it's been a while since he started running and they haven't tackled him yet. There was a play or two on that opening drive where it didn't feel like it was kind of like Quinshon Judkins didn't ever come out of the pile. Like, you just he stayed behind. It was like, oh, he probably got stopped for a yard or two. It was like, oh, and it's 2nd and 3. Like, oh, he got 7 yards. The offensive line must be getting some push. And, this is an offensive line where Fryer and Shabola and Donovan Jackson, it feels like you kind of know what you're getting with those guys. Hinsman and Searveld are both guys that they've talked about how they're big and strong. You can really get a push. You're probably more worried about pass pro than anything, but they were pretty solid in pass pro for the most part today. I can remember Howard got sacked maybe once.
None.
There was the
grounding.
The grounding, and there was another time he was kind of running for his life at one point. But really, for Indiana leads the Big Ten in sacks and
not no more.
Not no more. So yeah, that was what you were looking for out of the Ohio State offense. It does not need to be the greatest offensive line in the history of college football. It needs to be good.
Yep.
And against a team that has shown they can be deceptive, they can be creative, they did not get beat. They didn't get toasted. That's a heck of a day.
Yeah. Super chat from Ryan Dawes. That game was what the Tyson versus Paul fight should have been. The newly successful being beat down by the longtime great, in his opinion, of course.
It did feel a little like the Tyson-Paul fight, where it felt at one point in the fourth quarter like, well, it seems like the teams have come to an arrangement about how this is going to go.
And then Ryan Day is like, yeah, I'll take one more touchdown. Like, oh. Yeah, very, very orchestrated towards that part where Kurt Cignetti's like, you know what? Let's just not make this 45-7 or something like that, because that could cost them. Now, I think they're in with the Ole Miss loss.
Yeah.
As long as they don't lose to Purdue.
Well, and Georgia looked like cheeks, apparently. I mean, Georgia, can we just frame this? Georgia fans, who are the biggest crybabies in the entire world. And then Georgia had given up as many points to UMass halfway through the third quarter as Indiana had given up to Ohio State. UMass, which just fired its coach this week because they're so bad, even by UMass standards, at home in Athens.
Boy, there's a lot going on.
It might be time for Georgia fans to go get the shine box and sit in the corner for a while. No driving, just sit in the corner and just think about what your team just did.
Tom, I'm going to give you some scores. 17-0 Kansas over Colorado. 14-0 Arizona State over BYU. Arizona State's going to go to the playoffs, by the way, just so you know.
Man.
Minnesota 10-7 over Penn State right now. Kentucky and Texas tied 7-7.
Oh boy, Greg Sankey's going to be tweeting about strength of schedule so many times.
Georgia scores 14 points in the fourth quarter to make this
Good
respectable.
Good for them. Good for them.
Oh, sorry. I only have the top 25 games. I'll have to open this up to the entire FBS.
Sir Eric M says it would be nice for my sense of closure to finally get today's Hang 100 game.
Well, I don't know that it'll be that, but because the plays, can we talk about the lack of plays again, even though neither team is really just running the clock down. Ohio State 55 plays, Indiana I think 59. Like there's no ability to have 75 plays in the game anymore, I don't think, unless you're going constant tempo. But the days of like consistent 500-yard total offense games, I think, is gone. Certainly for Ohio State, unless that's the kind of style you want to play. But that's not – the offense played pretty well today. They had 316 yards of total offense. That's like a season low in past years.
Well, and Cignetti was talking about that. He's like, held them to maybe, I think it was Cignetti. I think he mentioned, but also there were some Indiana folks around there talking about, they held them to, Oh, I think he did. I think he talked about, until that long Travion Henderson run at the end, held Ohio State under 200 or 300 yards rushing, or 300 yards of offense, which is good, but it's also 5.7 yards per play, which is like, that's not a dominant game, but that's a game that if I told you before the game Ohio State's going to have 5.7 yards per play, you're saying, they're going to score 30 points, and that's probably enough to win, and it was. But it's just so few plays, 26 passes, 29 runs. It's amazing. That's what, 55 plays? It's like a drive and a half has just been like raptured into TV commercial land.
I mean, it's bizarre. You're just looking, they had 57 plays last week. Good luck putting up big numbers, and even like Jeremiah Smith today, just 3 catches and 34 yards. Like it's going to be difficult for anybody to just post yards like over and over again, because there just aren't enough plays. And especially if we can switch over to the offense real quick, if you don't throw it to him when he's in one-on-one coverage with no safety help, like down in the red zone, like they threw it to him once. I don't.
Yeah. Well, he had one where 2 guys were covering him, and it was like, well, if it's 2-on-1, he's still open, because that was one that he caught down the sideline. The Travion Henderson touchdown run right before halftime, the one that made it 14-7 Ohio State. Jeremiah Smith's like lined up directly in line with me, and I'm like, oh boy, I'm going to get a fade route. And then Indiana brings his safety over. And so then, they talk about the quarterback being a +1 on the run game. Jeremiah Smith's a +1 on the run game because you take another guy out of the box.
Did Will may have checked to the run on that one? So, because maybe the coverage was over there, but that was a really good job by Carson Hinsman and Austin Searveld pushing that left side of the line. It's always interesting when the offense goes behind new guys to like give you start seeing some confidence. And you're like, okay, let's go with it.
Yeah.
And it works, and it just builds the confidence even more. You guys saw Will Howard, and you're talking about how he told the offensive line, I am not worried about you guys at all. I feel bad for Seth, but I'm not worried about us.
Mm-hmm.
And they've got confidence in everybody. And you saw that in this one all day long.
Well, and you saw, I mean, we talked all week about the fact that Ryan Day was not, I don't think we heard did we hear the phrase talent equated this week? I don't know that we did.
No.
I don't think that we did. And that's a phrase that he uses a lot when, you'll hear it a lot during.
When he thinks there's talent equated.
When he thinks there's talent equated. And that struck me just in the middle of the game. I was kind of like, I didn't think about that, but I don't think we heard that all week. And just the way he was acting all week. It wasn't that he was taking the game lightly. It was just kind of, you can tell when he's nervous. You can tell when he has real serious concerns. He did not have real serious concerns this week.
Yeah, he was very confident all week. And then the emphatic nature of this game and putting, as he said, the exclamation point on it, I think you see the building going on and the way they're playing and the confidence that is there. Super chat from Girthy from Berthy. I was going to get through it if you didn't laugh.
Yeah, sure, it's my fault.
IGB should change his number weekly because it's too easy to spot number one. That's an interesting idea.
It looks like an eye for interference. So,
although if you change your number, like I'm 43 now, it's like that's a terrible number for a quarterback. They know you can't defend that way.
Yeah.
So they're going to be really watching you there.
Mike Ferguson says bold prediction: Tom wears blue in the Woody this week.
Oh, that's a 3-pointer because I don't see that happening for anybody.
See, here's the thing. You're assuming that this is something that I'm doing intentionally, and it's not just like, well, here's the thing that's hanging in the front of my closet. I have no idea what's going to be hanging in the front of my closet this week.
It's closet roulette.
I will probably do laundry tomorrow, and we'll just see, and I will give it zero thought. And
well, at least
unless you want to give me 3 bold prediction points. I mean, for the second week in a row, for me to get my 3-point.
Nobody cares about the bold prediction show, Tom. It's not even why we're here.
Mm-hmm. Isn't it though?
It's not.
No.
It's definitely. Well, I mean, maybe I won. I didn't look, but usually when somebody hits a 3, it's kind of over.
Can we talk for a moment about the Ohio State special teams?
Yep, let's do it.
I think the show a few weeks ago where we talked about they never do anything. It's just like the meme of the guy like poking this thing with a stick. Do something. That's been the Ohio State special teams for years, and they had the punt return for the touchdown, which is obviously kind of the big exclamation point play. But also they ran somehow the opposing punter biffs the snap for the second week in a row.
They should call that more often.
That's what I said. Why have they been sitting
trouble
on
with the snap next
Why
week?
have they been? Yes. Yeah. Oh, and it wasn't pouring down rain or anything, but it was enough rain that it was like, it might have made the ball a little bit slippery. And it was I don't think that was a great snap. That was a second week in a row where it was not a great snap.
Well, I think the snap was okay. I think he was looking at the rush because they were kind of loading up, I think. And
and Caden Curry got that. Caden Curry did not get the punter down last week. Caden Curry got the punter down this week. Caden Curry is an enthusiastic young man when he makes a play on the field.
Well, hey, man, that's his home state, Hoosiers. They didn't offer him. I'm just kidding. They offered him. Tom Allen, Indiana. Yeah.
So
I don't know if you were in here yet, but Will Howard called the Caleb Downs punt return for a touchdown. He said, to be fair, he said 2's going to take it 74 yards. He was off by 5. So I don't know if we want to give him credit for that. He did not overbid. So I guess it would still count unless somebody else said, I think he's going to go 77.
Unless he returned it from the 17-yard line. I think that counts.
So, and you guys saw Ryan Day talking about how they get so many short punts, and this was another short punt. He's like, dang it. And then it takes the perfect bounce right to Caleb Downs, makes the first guy miss with a spin move, gets up the sideline. CJ Hicks plants a dude on the ground. Mm-hmm. And the whole time you're just like, well, where are the flags? Let's see all of the flags. And no, there's surprisingly no flags on a long return.
Yeah.
First punt return in 10 years, Tom.
Almost to the day.
Almost to the day.
Yeah.
To the same team.
Yes.
Almost to the day.
The week before Michigan.
Yep.
So
again. It was November 22nd, 2014.
Wow. One day off.
Yeah,
wow.
Legitimately.
That is crazy. 10 years in one day. So November 24th. 2034, bold prediction.
Who will it be? I say it will be Ted Ginn Jr.
The kids can call you Teacher Jew. Yeah. Well, yes.
Hey,
Other folks pointed that out as well. That yes, that was a year that things worked out okay for Ohio State. I don't want to just do. Here's one from Bill Evans. Indiana had given up 11 sacks in 10 games, then 5 today. That was. We have not talked about Cody Simon. Like we kind of run through the defense. We need to talk about Cody Simon. That was the Cody Simon game for a long stretch. Cody Simon and Sonny Styles, 18 tackles between them. 18 tackles. Cody Simon, 10 tackles, 4 solo, 2.5 sacks, a forced fumble.
Mm-hmm.
That was a blindside hit. And he got there fast. Both of those sacks were Curtis Rourke takes the snap and there's just a blur, and it was like, oh, this is going to go. It's like the record scratch, and then the video freezes, and it's like, oh, you're probably wondering how I got myself in this situation. And both of those.
I was thinking that exact same thing on one of the Jack Sawyer pictures that you took, I think. But the Cody Simon, he blitzed from the edge. I don't recall him doing much of that. I think normally he's coming from like the A gap or so. That one, the one where he forced a fumble, you're watching it, it's like, boy. I can't believe Curtis Rourke didn't fumble the ball, because he fumbled it like right in line with. I couldn't see the fumble, and like Ty Hamilton came up with it. And like, I can't believe it. Like me and Marcus Hartman, I can't believe he didn't fumble that. And then you see the ref go like this. I'm like, I guess he did. And then you see the replay, and he knocked it out, and then he sacked him. Like he got it with his left hand, and then took him down with his right arm, and just really, really good all day long for him. He had some nice tackles that were kind of downfield that were touchdown savers. At least one where. There was maybe like an 8-yard gain, but if he didn't get there, then it could have gone the distance. And really, that's the Cody Simon game. If you're going to get those kinds of games out of your two linebackers, and like Caleb Downs, Lathan Ransom, 5 tackles, 4 tackles. They didn't need to have as many tackles because those two guys are cleaning it up so well.
Yeah, and you look at the second quarter for Indiana. They had 18 plays from scrimmage. No cheating.
Okay.
18 plays from scrimmage for Indiana. How many yards did they have?
I will say they had some negative drives in there and not a long drive. So I'll say negative 11. No, wait. There was one point from after that first drive, for the second half, they had negative 17 yards.
Mm-hmm. Well, it wasn't negative 17.
So negative 11.
Mr. Blutarski, 0.0.
Because they had 70 on the first drive. They finished, I think, the half with 53 yards of total offense.
Yeah, and Ohio State was not dominant in that second quarter. They had 54 yards of total offense, 3.9 yards per play, but that was good for 2 touchdowns. And part of that was the special teams, the bad snap, and setting them up with a short field. The defense set up Ohio State up with a short field at one point that then immediately led to a turnover. That was the Jelani Thurman, the kind of tipped pass play. But they started. They started a drive. They started consecutive drives at the Indiana 44. That was a touchdown. Indiana 18. That was an interception. And Indiana 7. So you start 3 straight drives in Indiana territory, including 2 inside the red zone. That's pretty, that is setting yourself up for success.
Yeah, that's another reason Ryan Day was talking about how there aren't a ton of yards because they had some short fields. So good luck putting up a bunch of yards when, you've only got 30 yards to go.
Yeah, I was looking to see if they have available yards on the stat thing, and they don't. But the drive success rate, 78%. That is probably a winning number. Here's Ohio State's drives: ends in a punt, end in downs. Not the way that the later one ends in downs. Touchdown, interception, touchdown, punt, field goal, touchdown. So 4 touchdowns and a field goal in the last 7 drives. That's the last 3 quarters of the game. So. That's against a team that has been as good as Indiana. That I think is a meaningful performance.
All right, we get some questions.
Let's. Okay. Yeah. Timothy Mason says, I think on the 3rd sack, Rourke looked up and saw the block out coming free and just assumed the fetal position as if to say, "Don't hurt me."
Yeah, that's one of those blow the whistle.
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
Yeah. Super chat from Mike Farino. Here, I got it. You got it now. Okay. Mike Farino says, I'm happy they got Jelani a touchdown. I'm sure that was a confidence booster after being partially slash significantly the cause of the INT. You said that there was probably some contact before that?
It was a little early, but, you can't get all of them correct. And so, this one coming out of the wing tee there with the play action and rewarding him. It was a nice throw. Will Howard had some nice throws into the end zone. That touchdown throw to Emeka Egbuka just over, I think, the linebacker's fingers. Like that was, I tweeted out that was Stroudian, just like the touch there. C.J. Stroud.
Yes, I'm familiar with C.J. Stroud and his
former quarterback. Not the one that was on game day today. That was Justin Fields. He was one year earlier.
Minnesota 10, Penn State 10, 3 minutes to go till halftime.
That feels like a really, really terrible game to watch. Watch that one with 5 minutes, 7 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. Do not watch it just yet. Yeah,
James Franklin, buddy, I would advise you to win that football game. I don't think.
Can you imagine the lack of ticket sales if they have to go to a bowl game that isn't a playoff game? And it's because I don't think they're in if they lose to Minnesota. That's
I think that
the SEC is also losing.
Yeah, so right. Yeah, there's a lot of teams not doing great. And I'm not.
I assume Tennessee ends with Vanderbilt, and I'm not above Vanderbilt beating Tennessee and giving them a third loss.
No, Tennessee bravely took on UTEP today and won 56-0.
Good for them.
This is the week, as the banner says, to sign up for Buckeye Huddle. If you've been holding out, so much coming up, including the Michigan game, Big Ten championship game, probably, if they handle their business next week. Ohio State now officially controls its destiny. No question, no anything. If they beat Michigan, they're going to Indianapolis in 2 weeks. National Signing Day as well. I don't know if people know that. National Signing Day, December 4th. Do people realize that? I don't know that people realize that because we haven't talked about it a ton because it used to be December 20th or something like that. They have moved it up this year, so that's coming pretty quick. David Sanders was here today, 5-star offensive tackle, currently committed to Tennessee. Saw a very good game, saw an offensive line have a very good game. Great atmosphere. And just the fact that he's here on what is Tennessee's last home game weekend, you kind of wonder, boy, would that be a big addition to this class.
You're not coming here because you're not interested. There's
This is a business trip.
Yeah. So it was certainly big news when it was the news flew through the sphere here, and then also Ohio State got a commitment from 2027 wide receiver Jameer Brown, who is
big time,
really
time.
Good.
Yeah, he's someone we saw at camp last June, and he sometimes there's which one is the guy that we're supposed to be? It was just
that guy.
I bet it's that guy.
Yeah, and he's not he was probably 6 foot 180, 185 when we saw him, but he is lightning and he catches things and he goes up and he plays bigger than he is. Mm-hmm. So, only 2027.
Yeah. And sometimes it's the guys are Jakeem Stewart is you see Jakeem Stewart from across the room and it's just yes, that is a person who is larger than people typically are and moves faster than people typically do at that size. Jameer Brown. Sorry, I've got too many names in my head. Jameer Brown was just very much you see him do stuff and it's just most people can't do that. So that's a name that I think not a huge surprise that he ended up at Ohio State, but getting an in-state guy for 2027, the fact that they're offering a guy who's at 2027 in-state, that tells you what they think.
Before his freshman year.
Yeah, yep. Mike Farino says on the Egbuka touchdown, Howard also had Henderson leak through the line and no one between him and the end zone.
There was on that first drive that he hit Egbuka for 2 yards on 3rd and 5. He did have Travion Henderson in the flats for what would have been a first down. And again, that throw to Egbuka, which is, I assume, where the play was designed to go. And if you've got a linebacker on him, you're going to do that 10 times out of 9. But overall, 22 of 26 for Will Howard, really checking things down, I think, a lot. And they were calling a lot of short passes. I don't know if it was – I assume it was because of what Indiana was doing. You guys were watching what Devin Radcliffe had to say, what Mark Givler had to say. They were probably talking about that as well. But 26 attempts, 201 yards passing. It's on the lower end for what, especially the 22 completions, kind of on the lower end for what Ohio State normally does. But they were giving them those short yards, those short catches, and it's Ohio State finally was like, okay, let's just start taking them, and they moved down the field. I don't even know if it may have been their second touchdown or one of their touchdown drives. They never ran the ball; they just threw it, and it's like, you're going to give us the yards, we're going to take them.
Yeah, and that's one of those things where if the opposing team is going to take away, hey, we're not going to let you take a deep shot. Okay, well, then you're just going to go bump, 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 and just be methodical down the field. Because there's a lot of teams where if you take away the deep shot and the ability to hit the one big, the one good throw for the one big play, they can't. I mean, we see this all the time with some of the lesser teams that come into Ohio Stadium. There are teams that can't consistently execute the, hey, 8-yard pass, 10-yard pass, 12-yard pass. Ohio State has been able to pass protect for Will Howard, have Will Howard make consistently good throws. He was, again, what was he, 22 of 26 today? 85% completion.
Started 14 of 14.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Martellian.
I don't want to blaspheme, but that's actually better than Martellian, which I know. Here's Will Howard's stats: 22 of 26, 201 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown, 85% completions. I know the thing says Will for Heisman. I think he's just like, he's not the most exciting player on this team. And it's not that he doesn't deserve it to be in the conversation of best player in the nation, because he's the best player for Ohio State. Yeah, you look at all the other quarterbacks that were in the portal last year, and Cam Ward's probably more exciting, and Cam Ward's much more likely to end up at the Heisman ceremony. Will Howard is exactly what Ohio State needs, because Cam Ward has to go win football games for Miami. Yep. Ohio State has the defense, they have the outside, the skill talent that you have to be smart and make good decisions, and that gets it there for you. And compare his numbers there to Curtis Rourke's, and it's like, there's that is what I probably do not need to tell you which team won if you just read that graphic.
But with the Heisman, you need to have Heisman moments. He does not have any of those. Heisman numbers, his numbers are like, a Heisman number is not, I'm third in the nation in pass completion percentage or passer rating. You need yards and you need touchdowns. His touchdowns are way down compared to C.J. Stroud, compared to Justin Fields. Now, he's got like the same kind of interception numbers and completion percentage, but that's dink and dunk stuff. Anybody could have that. Yeah. Anybody could have that, Kevin.
Yeah, but you also see Rourke and Allard in the Heisman, on when people take the list out to 10, and I think that's probably creating some of the issue.
Well, I saw a couple of weeks ago where Drew Aller and Will Howard had the same Heisman odds at like 10,000 to 1 or 1,000 to 1. It's like, there's no way those two guys should be grouped, and that's just, you don't think Will Howard is. These guys are not Heisman candidates. We just would like to take some money on them.
Here's the thing with the Heisman Trophy, like the Will Howard season has been just real solid. He has just been handling business. He's been very efficient. He's been very effective. He has been checking all the boxes on the spreadsheet all year. The Heisman Trophy is like a monster truck rally. It's like, there is no subtlety. You're only going to need the edge of your seat. It's just, oh man, did you see what Gravedigger just did? He threw a 97-yard touchdown off his back foot, and there's not a lot of subtlety. I don't want to say that it's voted on by morons, but also, and also, as Danny Cannell said earlier today, hang on, let me pull this up, because I think listen, if I saw this, you need to hear this too. Danny Cannell, resident genius, who's still keeping receipts on Florida State, which he's having a great season.
Got to get another file cabinet.
This is one of these things that I screenshot so to not give him the engagement that he so craves. If you take Ashton Genty off the roster, Boise State is still the same record. Same thing with Travis Hunter. Danny Cannell believes the Heisman Trophy has become anti-quarterback. There it is, the stupidest thing said in human history.
Yeah, I think radio is anti-Taylor Swift also. That's what you're saying. That's basically
yeah.
It's anti-chicken nugget.
Oh boy, Mike Farino says Minnesota just blocked a punt with 1:10 to go in the second. Ball's at about the 20-yard line. Oh boy, and Minnesota has now scored. 17-10, Minnesota.
Colorado's come firing back.
What if the 12-team playoff doesn't happen because there aren't 12 teams that are good enough to be in the playoff? Do you ever think about that, smart guy?
Whoever has the best APR.
Some 5 and 7 teams getting in because Rice.
Hey,
How did Rice get in the playoff? Well, it's an interesting story.
No, it's not. Can't go that far.
No. Ethan Maxfield says Will is a great leader. Will Howard, absolutely. And, I saw him up there wearing the Run the Damn Ball hat on the post-game interview. He was wearing that coming into the stadium as well. I put a picture up on Twitter of him, and Seth McLaughlin is on his knee scooter, and Will Howard's like right there with him with the those are two guys who probably had never met before January this year. And I know that they were kind of going through the recruiting process at the same time. And they've talked about the fact that they got along really well going through that process. That, those are guys who Ohio State has leaned on a lot this year. And McLaughlin obviously now out for the season, but Will Howard's still playing a very big role.
Well, and I don't know if you got in here to hear him talking about the Michigan game.
No.
Where he's like, definitely I want to win that for me, but more than anything else, you want to win it for. He was naming all of the seniors, like name after name after name. I want to win it for this guy and this guy, and I really want to win it for Coach Day to shut up the haters, and I want to win it for this. It reminded me of like in Hoosiers, where Gene Hackman's like, who do you want to win this for? And he's like, I want to win it for Coach. I want to win it for my dad. I want to win it for whatever. And he was up there like, I want to win it for this guy. I want to win it for this guy. And it's like, we're here. And he's going to have that opportunity.
Well, and Will Howard is someone who grew up in Pennsylvania. So he's someone who's going to be very familiar with the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry in a way that, it's not like that game's a big secret or has been real under the radar the last, 100 years or so. But, he's probably familiar with it in a way that Quinshon Judkins might not be, or Seth McLaughlin might not be. Yeah, obviously that's something they get schooled up on pretty quickly when they get to Columbus. There is a big wall inside the Woody with nothing but Ohio State, Michigan stuff and a countdown clock on there. Countdown clock now 6 days and some change.
Yeah, boy.
I can't wait till the morning show so I can find out how far away it is.
Will it be 5 days at that point, or is it still
6
just 6?
days?
Okay,
6 days.
right.
Come on.
Well, this might be a long show.
That's true. Seeking Yog says, I really wonder what the defensive adjustments does to LJ. It's obviously he was to hold up in making those changes. Does it change LJ's plans for retirement? If the changes have been made and the changes are successful, and I don't think there's a real strong argument to go back to the previous way. Right. So I think like if you're successful in the new thing, why would you be like, nope, and now I'm going back? Like that doesn't. As long as it's working, and again we said we'll see. Oregon is coming, and then the playoff is coming when you got some good offenses there. But if it works, then I don't know that there's a big source of stress there.
And if it is working, and if you can't take joy in that, then you've got an issue. So I don't think he's like, it's fine, but I'm not happy about it. Like if it's working and your players are succeeding, and then you shouldn't be upset about that. I do think it's interesting. We did not see. I don't know that we saw the Jack. We didn't see C.J. Hicks in this one. So that was one of my questions: was how serious were they about C.J. Hicks? One, and so I don't know that we really saw him in this one. So that kind of answered that question a little bit, and they were more comfortable just doing what they've done the last 4 or 5 weeks with their defensive line and the linebackers, rather than necessarily mixing too much of the Jack in there. But the blitzing has been really, really effective, and it's coming from the middle. Even though the outside blitzes were something that they were really doing well today, and it may be better than I've seen them do it in a while with the linebackers. Yeah,
it feels like it's coming from unpredictable guys in unpredictable places, which is what you want. You don't want to be predictable. You don't want to be. You don't want to be bringing 6 guys, but you want to be bringing 4 guys from different places. And maybe it's 5, but you got to kind of mix it up, keep teams off balance. And Indiana, I don't know if they didn't know where it was coming from. They had no answers for it. That was for sure.
Yeah. We got Gurley so impressed with Trey and the slide. Are they practicing slides this year as they seem to be more apparent at the end of Buckeye games? Maybe after that first slide of the season, they're like, you know what, let's work on this stuff. But that's a really, really heady play by somebody that didn't need to be so heady at that point. You completely understand it. I was just really, taken aback, impressed, or whatever, just surprised maybe that Ryan Day is like, no, I want this touchdown. Similar to they went for it on fourth down at one point rather than there's something else that Day did that was like, it was aggressive and it was surprising. I think
they went for it on a 4th and 1 with maybe 10 minutes left in the game, something like that. There was a drive in the fourth quarter that it was like, they got to a 4th and 1 and it was kind of near midfield. It might've been just over midfield. And I remember thinking, this is, they might just punt this and play it safe. And the old Ryan Day, absolutely. 2019 Ryan Day punts that ball and plays it safe. And this was, I don't know how much of that is 2024 Ryan Day and leave no doubt Ryan Day, and how much of that is I don't respect this team on the other sideline. But either way, it didn't seem like there was, they didn't have to call a timeout and debate it. It was just like, all right, go. And they got it comfortably. And I think they punched in a touchdown on that drive. But that was Ryan Day sort of living up to what he says he wants to do and how he wants to manage the game. I did think it was fascinating, Tony, in the fourth quarter. I talked to Kevin on the morning show on Friday about what's Indiana going to do. If Indiana's down, are they going to play to win, or are they going to play to manage the score? And I had folks on our board who were pretty sure, you play to win. And it's like, that's very easy to say on Thursday. It is very easy to say we are going to go all out. And then, the scenario I put out was not exactly what was there. I think I said down 14 points and it's 6 minutes left or something like that. They were down 21, I think, points at that point. And it was 4th and 10 at midfield, and it was like 11 minutes left in the game. And it's like, you have to score 3 times. There are not that many possessions left in this game, and they punted. And then there was another one on the next drive where they got sacked and they ended up punting again. Like, you punted twice in the fourth quarter when, you're probably not going to make it. But if you really are, winning this game is the single most important thing, you go for it there, even if the odds are against you. He did feel like he was sort of managing the game to the scoreboard a little bit. And even their last drive, they go down the field methodically. It was not, that was a 15-play, 75-yard, 7-minute and 3-second drive. That was a drive that ended after the 2-minute warning. It started with 8:56 left in the fourth quarter and ended with minute 53, and it got it to 31-15, and they went for 2, and then it's like, well, it's only a 2-score game.
That's what we said. We're standing there at the back of the end zone. It's like, well, this is perfect for everybody, basically.
The folks at the Big Ten office are going to go stroll outside and go have a nice dinner at Fogo de Chao to celebrate that last touchdown, because it helps the Big Ten in terms of the college football playoff. And and everyone was okay with that except for Ryan Day, apparently.
No. I will be interested to go back and watch. Were they milking the clock on that last drive? Because I don't remember. I was getting ready to come downstairs at that point, but they were not hustling to the line. You can't hurry up and run 7-minute drives.
They were snapping with, they weren't snapping with 2 seconds on the play clock, but they were snapping with 9-10 seconds left in the play clock, not 20. They were not in any enormous hurry there, and there was a lot of running the ball on that drive. It was just, they wanted to get one more score, and by golly, they got one more score.
Shadrick Bell saying the backs and flats have been open all year. I think they've done a better job of getting them involved, but they missed. Will Howard missed the one to start the game, but I like the way they use the running backs and they could probably do some more screens, like actual screens, rather than the running screens. I don't even have to read something. I just see you read it and I just start to smile.
I don't even need to ask who punched that one up.
So this is from Jeff Frazier. Kevin is the Bret Hart of Buckeye Huddle. The best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. He's also, not a lot of people know this, Kevin is Canadian.
I thought he was the Owen Hart of, no?
Too soon.
No?
Too soon.
Too soon? Okay. All right.
He's the Gary Hart.
Warpug. Here's some monkey business for you. Warpug says, so have the Bucks held anything back from Michigan? Yes, I'm going to say yes. And they have not probably held back as much as they would have in the last couple years, because this year they should be able to handle their business. Michigan should not score more than 13 points, 14 points. I mean, like what
that's including the first drive.
Well, yeah, you get one on the first drive, you get one in the second half, and or if Will Johnson's playing, maybe you get a defensive score.
Pete Thamel said he's out
for
the season. Like he's not going to play today, and he's not going to play next week.
Well,
this is what I was told.
Well,
so it's unfortunate. Totally, he didn't shut down. He didn't shut himself down, I'm sure.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And producer confirms Will Johnson not playing next week. So yeah, it's okay. So now they've got to score one in the first drive and then one in the second half. But they're going to have stuff. They're going to have variations on stuff. It would be really funny if they ran a flea flicker. Like, it would be really funny if Ohio State ran a flea flicker. Like, that would be objectively funny if they did that.
It's like that's Michigan's necessary play to get 12 yards, and now you're running it and picking up 75 yards on it.
The phrase you're looking for is gimmick infringement.
Gimmick infringement. Yes. Speaking of Odysseus 2002, does Tony glaze his turkey with ketchup for Thanksgiving? No, it's a meatloaf. It's a deep fried meatloaf, and then you put the ketchup on afterwards.
Yep. All right. Sir Eric M says, never been a huge fan of dropping in the rankings after losing to a higher ranked team. Basically, you're punished for doing what the committee expected. And that was until Ohio State scored the last one. That game was within. I mean, at one point, this line this week was 13.5, and then they were losing by 16. Mm-hmm. So, were they losing by more than that before that? Yes, but with a minute left on the clock, they were down 16. So that game went broadly how you would sort of have expected it.
Who should pass them? Everybody else has a worse loss or multiple losses.
We'll see what Notre Dame does tonight. Alabama's plays no
But again,
one.
Notre Dame has a loss to Northern Illinois.
Right, yeah. Georgia looked terrible. Ole Miss lost.
This is where it gets
beat no one. Miami didn't have a great game. I mean,
no, it's just like, well, this team had a better win. What is Indiana's best win?
Well, and you're going to know this week, Tuesday night at 7:00 or whatever it is, you are going to know what the committee is going to do with Indiana, because they now are not going to be in the Big Ten championship game, barring a huge Michigan upset here next week, and so their resume is more or less in stone. I'm sure they're going to go out and they're going to try and put up 1,000,000 points on Purdue, but the resume is more or less in stone. So if they want to, if they're going to drop Indiana to 12 and put them like on the fringes, they might not get back in. But if they drop them a spot or two, then they're saying you are in. So Indiana will know very likely what the deal is.
Yeah, I mean, Ole Miss is going to drop out, so Georgia and Tennessee will move up. Now it's just, does Indiana stay in front of the Georgia-Tennessee, or if they drop down behind them, then they may be in some trouble.
Mm-hmm.
But
yep. Geiger Lee says, for this week, are we going to be treated with the soothing, dulcet tones of Tom reading Big Ten bylaws to us? We don't. Yeah, there is. We'll see. I mean, the reason that's getting asked about is Michigan's response to the notice of allegations is due this week. I don't know what's going to come out. There was the report that Michigan's not going to release the FOIA on the notice of allegations until the Monday before Christmas, like the 23rd of December, to bury it in as deep as they possibly can. I don't know. We will, if there is if there is news, we will do. I'm sure we will be talking about it, and if not, there will be plenty of other stuff to talk about this week.
I mean, if this hit, I can't even imagine the number of streams and the length of time that will be on if that hits also this week.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll be wrapping up like one show, and then boom, it'll drop. It's like, well, I guess we're here for another 2 hours.
Just we'll wrap it up and just stay on the same stream and just start a new show. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Boy,
what in the world?
Mike Farino says Minnesota blocked a Penn State extra point, ran it back for 2 points. 19-16 Minnesota at half. Absolutely they did.
Scored on a touchdown on a flea flicker as well, by the way.
Oh man, yeah. Arizona State 21, BYU 3 at halftime. Colorado coming back and it is now 23-14 Kansas just before halftime. So, boy, a lot of interesting games. And
does the regular season still matter?
Tony, I was reliably informed that no one would care. Missouri, ranked somehow, Missouri up 14-10 to Mississippi State early in the second quarter.
That's an SEC win if they get it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, and even if they don't, it's a quality loss.
Wisconsin down 24-10 at Nebraska.
Well, you know what? If Nebraska wins, I will be extremely happy for Nebraska. Yeah. I will be extremely happy for Nebraska. All right, so Mike Ferguson says no pickleball, but can we get a December time lapse of the St. Pickless transformation?
Should it be like an advent calendar, which is a pickle that dates?
Well, there's like German tradition is you hang a little pickle ornament on your Christmas tree and you hide it, and the kid who finds it gets a prize. I mean, maybe that's
not.
No?
No.
Okay. All right. So we have a lot of different areas we could go to. Do we have sound? Okay. So I know we have Kurt Signetti. I'm assuming we'll want to save that for a little later on. Do we have other stuff that is ready?
No,
we have Signetti.
Yeah.
Okay. So do we want to do photos first?
Sure.
We want to do,
let's do photos.
Because it feels like we've got to do a little bit of Michigan talk too. So let's go through some game photos real quick. Go ahead and punch those up whenever we got them. Okay, so yeah, there's that was Caden Curry taking down the Indiana punter on, he
pick on somebody your own size. This guy.
It's rare that life gives you a second chance at something so quickly. He missed the punter last week. It worked out fine. David Adolph blocked the punt against Northwestern. This is like what's the Tom Cruise movie where it's Day After Tomorrow, I think, where he has to keep doing stuff over and over again until he gets it right. And so he
it's not The Day After Tomorrow, but I know what you're talking about. It's really good. It's a good movie.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of Cocktail. No, it's different. No, Days of Thunder. Yes. But yeah, he didn't get a chance to do it last week. It worked out fine. Did get a chance to do it this week. This one, this was. Well, no, apparently not, because they didn't throw a flag. This was one that was like you had all these penalties called, and it was like, this is what we're talking about with Davis Negvinosin. Like, there's a bunch of stuff that doesn't get called. There's stuff that doesn't get called both ways. But it always gets called on Davis Negvinosin. This is like right at the point of attack, and there's Caleb Downs getting his jersey tugged, and it's perfectly fine to not call that. It's not the most egregious thing, but I saw that, and it was like right after they had called another thing on Davis and Ignosin.
Yes, Edge of Tomorrow.
Edge of Tomorrow. There we go. This is Sonny Styles. Sonny Styles had a really good day. Linebackers on the whole played a really, really good day. Sonny was happy with that play, as you can see there. There's Jack Sawyer and there's Curtis Rourke. This is the one I think where someone said he was just kind of like going into the fetal position. Jack is, sort of breaking down there because he doesn't want to go flying past him. And Jack Sawyer also very happy about that play.
So I asked Jack Sawyer after the game, how quickly do your thoughts turn to Michigan? He's like, already. Like, this game is like, no offense to Indiana, this game is done. It means nothing.
Yeah. Yep. This was Carnell Tate. This was on the 3rd and 35 play where really made a nice catch to haul that in on the sideline and turn a 3rd and 35 into a 4th and 10. How many times, Tony, do you think a team converts a 3rd and 35 and gets 0 points out of the drive? I feel like that's got to be that has happened twice in college football in the last 7 years.
Can you have scoregami situations?
It feels like that. Yeah, boy, that was they convert the 3rd and 35, and it was like, oh, they're going to win this game for sure, and then they don't score on the drive.
Like, and there's the fumble. Yeah. Cody Simon forces that. I'm like behind Cody Simon, so I never saw the ball.
Yep, that was. And then this is Caleb Downs running back that punt for a touchdown.
And there's C.J. Hicks getting ready to plant that dude.
Yep, C.J. Hicks with a nice block there. Yeah, that was a, like one of those family circus cartoons where you have the dotted line, and he's that was not a straight a straight line Ted Ginn touchdown punt return. That was a little bit here, a little bit there, left, right.
Ted Ginn also told him he tweeted out that Caleb Downs is gonna score a punt return touchdown this week.
Well,
he knows.
He does. And then this is Jelani Thurman celebrating his touchdown. Jelani Thurman, that touchdown was too close to me. He has back to me, and all I just have is like the back of his jersey. I'm like, well, it's in sharp focus, but
the photographer's lament.
Yes.
Something was too close to me.
Yes. Yeah. his back. So let's real quick hit the Curt Cignetti postgame, because I know you guys heard like the whole Ohio State postgame. I think you probably heard a little bit of this earlier, but Curt Cignetti had some interesting stuff to say. He's a fascinating guy. He is, he comes up, you'll hear him come up and it's just kind of like, well, that didn't go well. And it was just kind of like very off the cuff. But then he'll complain about not getting a couple calls, but then be like, well, it's not that's why we lost. It's, give them credit. But, and then it's like, you look at all the calls they did get, and it's like, well, but these, and, one of them was you're going to hear him talk about a call, and that was the one where it was 3rd and 1, and Tyleik Williams acted like the right guard had moved or flinched, and just went across and just busted him right in the pads, knocked him on his butt.
And I think the discussion there was Tyleik Williams was the thought was that from the silent count, the guard moving and signaling triggered him. And then they show on the replay of the television, he's like, after they call it on a false start, he's kind of like laughing, like I got away with one.
Yeah.
So I'm sure Curt Cignetti won't like that part either.
So that was the first thing you're going to hear him talking about here. So, all right, let's let you hear a little bit from Curt Cignetti, and then we're going to get into the Michigan game.
All right. Well, in life, all good things come to an end eventually. I give Ohio State a lot of credit. They dominated the football game. Thought we got off to a good start, and good football game there for a while, 7-7. Came up with a turnover on defense and a 4th down stop. And then we got a 1st down on offense at 7-7. And then we come up 3rd and 1. And by all indications, they jumped off sides, which would have given us a 1st down. But, we got called for the penalty. I'm not sure they made the correct call. And we came up 3rd and 6, and we got sacked. And from that point on, and I'm not saying the game would have been different on that call. That's not what I'm saying at all. That's where the game really changed, I'd say, is around that point. We couldn't protect the quarterback. We had communication errors in pass pro. Every time we dropped back to pass, something bad happened. And it seemed like we were in that end zone to our left for 5 years. It was like a nightmare. We dropped a punt down back there. And really, we were fortunate to go into halftime only 7 points down. And they've been a great third quarter team, Ohio State. Couldn't get anything going still on offense. They had big punt return, So I was proud of the way we fought back and got it to within 2 scores there, 31-15, but didn't like the fact that we gave up the run and the easy touchdown at the end. But they won. They deserved to win. They're a terrific football team. And coupled with the noise, it made it a very, very, very challenging day for us. And I give them nothing but credit. Nothing we haven't seen on tape. We practiced all week long. I think you couple it with the noise and having to go to a silent count because center couldn't hear, and then the speed at which they do it at compared to our scout team and the pressure of the moment, our guys just didn't respond very well. And sometimes we had missed assignments, sometimes we had communication error, sometimes we got physically beat. But it wasn't very pretty. No, I think we came out, I felt good at halftime. And here's how I felt. We were down 14-7, fortunate to be only 7. That's how I felt. And all we had to do is get our feet back on the ground and kind of settle the game down a little bit. And that the longer the game went, the pressure then would shift to them if we could stay, within striking distance. But then they had those scores, and we just couldn't respond. We did start to get a little ground game going, but, we'd call a pass and get sacked and get way behind the chains. So I was proud that we scored that last touchdown, and made the 2-point conversion, 31-15. You're kicking an onside kick. Now, who knows, but then, so. And so, I mean, that's that.
So that was Curt Cignetti. I mean, he was asked later on, do you think your team belongs in the college football playoff? And I said, is that a serious question? Are you actually asking me that? And he didn't answer. He just said, the answer's obvious. Of course he thinks they're a college football playoff team. And that was not, they got beat, but, Ohio State's going to do that to a lot of teams. Ohio State has done that to a lot of teams this year. And they had to come to Columbus. Penn State and Oregon got Ohio State in their places. So, that was probably a little closer, a little more competitive than a lot of Ohio State-Indiana games we've been to over the years. But this was also a game where Ohio State was not sleepwalking into this game. The Indiana game is generally one that's okay, it's like driving over a speed bump. You probably slow down slightly, but you're not coming to a full stop and really check. It's not a 4-way stop. You're just okay, Indiana, boom, all right, next game. And this is one where Ohio State was pretty clearly dialed in, and had to work for their win.
If you say the words Xander Diamant to Urban Meyer, he might be like, where? One of those Indiana games that you do overlook, man. And then you almost lose it.
What was it, 52-49 or something?
Yeah, and they had they had a shot to throw the ball into the end zone from the 30-yard line or whatever. Yeah. So there have been some interesting ones against Indiana. So this one interesting as well. And Ohio State comes out with the emphatic win. Super chat from Mike Ferguson. Curt Cignetti is Tom Allen 2.0. That's interesting because they're both very energetic, and a lot of it it's not false bravado because with Curt Cignetti, because they do win. It may have been false hope with Tom Allen, but you still need, as long as you have the players. He had a player for a while. He had some players for a while. Then you lose Michael Penix, and suddenly things go to heck. Let's see what this Indiana team looks like next year. I'm a fan of Curt Cignetti because if you Google him, Tom, he wins.
Boy, did Ohio State jump on the Google me thing.
Ooh-wee.
Holy smokes. Yeah. Ohio State jumped on that quite a bit. They had a picture of him on the scoreboard at the end of the game. I'm just going to pull it up. I took a picture of it, put it on Twitter. It said extra, Buckeyes win, ? Google it. And they had Curt Cignetti standing on the sideline, a video of Curt Cignetti in the middle of the newspaper. Yeah. It was pointed, which, you can, there is a certain amount of, when you put yourself out there like that, sometimes step 2 is find out. Yeah. And it was find out Saturday for Indiana, and that's okay. This is still a team that's in a million miles ahead of where anyone thought they would. Anyone thought they would be back in July, back in August. And now he still has a chance, I think a very realistic chance, to be in the college football playoff.
Yeah. So let's transition to Michigan for a couple of minutes. If you guys have some super chats, we'll stick around a little bit longer. The crowd today, if that's the same crowd next week, Ohio State will have an advantage there because we could only hear so much in the press box. You'd have a better idea of what it was, but this was the best crowd that I've seen at Ohio State in a while. Give them credit. It's a noon game, I know, but they were in their seats. They were ready to go. They were loud and they were active all game long. Yeah.
The crowd was an absolute factor because Indiana had a delay of game penalty, which I would assume is probably maybe at least somewhat related to the crowd. They had the false start penalty, which was maybe not a false start penalty, but you can credit that to the crowd if you want to. But I think another piece of that, and this is another thing that Cignetti, I think, maybe talked about later on in the press conference, was the fact that they had to go to the silent count. That maybe makes it a little easier for Ohio State to time things up because it's, the right guard taps the center on his leg, and then the center gets ready to snap it and snaps it, and it's kind of on the same basic rhythm. So you can maybe time up that snap a little more, and that maybe makes it a little easier to get through a little quicker. But I think you have to credit the crowd. The crowd got The Buckeyes were very pointed this week, asking the crowd to be loud. They put out social media videos, talked about it in interviews, showed those interviews on the scoreboard on third down plays. I mean, the message was very clear, and the crowd got the message, and crowd did their job, and that's what home field advantage is.
Yeah, and Buckeyes will have that home field advantage next week when Michigan comes to town. The Wolverines currently up 24-6 early in the third quarter. They have remembered, Tony Alford has remembered to play Kalel Mullings, who has a couple of touchdowns in this one and 79 yards rushing on 7 carries so far. Tom, based on everything we have seen from Michigan, is there any reason, other than it's Michigan, to not expect a similar score outcome that we saw in this one? Because the running, I think Michigan, I don't know that they'll be able to run the ball as well as Indiana did in this one. Certainly you wouldn't expect them, well, they'll throw the ball better than Indiana because Indiana was so bad. But I like the Indiana passing game better than Michigan, so I don't know that you can necessarily expect Michigan to do better than what Indiana did in this one. The defensive line again controlled this game for Ohio State. I have not seen anything from the Michigan offensive line to think that the same thing couldn't happen to them next week.
I think get ready to hear the name Evan Link a bunch this week. Yeah. I think that's going to be a name that you hear a bunch from us and perhaps from others. Davis Warren, 19 of 24, 79% completions, but only 6.9 yards per completion. Yeah. So it's just a bunch of dink and dunk. Kalel Mullings has a 47-yarder, so that's a big chunk of their offense right there. It's Michigan. When Michigan looks good and puts up impressive numbers or impressive scores, they do it one way. When they look terrible, they do it the same way. It's just slightly worse. It's not like, oh, look, Happy learned how to putt. Michigan's throwing for 15 yards an attempt and they're running for 50 yards a rush. They're running for 5.2 yards per carry, and that's 17 carries for 89 yards, but 47 yards on one, and 16 carries for 42 yards. So that's that's like not quite 3. That's like 2.5 yards per carry, and then there's one long run. So I think there is a certain generation of Ohio State fans, like when they divide everything into different generations, Gen X Ohio State fans will never, ever, 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 ever go into a Michigan game and say, no problem. What could possibly go wrong? There's just never going to happen. I think the younger Ohio State fans are kind of probably going to go in with that sort of a mindset, but I can assure you the folks at the Woody Hayes Athletic Center are not going to go in with that mindset this week because there's probably a chunk of the Ohio State fan base that is taking for granted that, of course, Ohio State's going to win. Michigan's not very good this year, and so, of course, Ohio State's going to win. This is still probably very personal for Ryan Day, and I think Kurt Cignetti may have talked his way into, let's just call it Club Loxley, in terms of Ryan Day probably, putting an exclamation point on things. I'm going to say, Tony, that Sharon Moore has probably talked his way into Club Loxley as well. And, if Ohio State has a chance, you're not throwing out the kitchen sink. You're not using all your good stuff next week. But if Ohio State has a chance to, kick them while they're down, I don't know that they're going to be like, oh, no, we wouldn't want to do that. That would be bad for the rivalry.
There's nobody sliding at the one next week in any form or fashion.
Travion Henderson does the Curtis Samuel. He's doing the Curtis Samuel tape break on the way to the end zone is what he's doing if that happens next week.
And that is a 12 p.m. kick on Fox if you haven't heard, noon games. But again, the crowd was awesome this week. They'll be able to get back up for it this next week. And anything we are gonna talk about Ohio State, Michigan all week long, so we don't need to spend a ton of time on it today. I'd say glad to be here. It's the best week of the year.
People need to hit the thumbs up if they haven't hit the thumbs up already. Please do that. We need that. Need you to do that for us. But yeah, this coming up. Let's sort of set the stage for the week because I feel like we know what this is because we do this every year. But we've picked up a bunch of subscribers, so we will tend to do a bunch this week. Like we have a certain big game week thing where we'll put out a bunch of extra content. We will do that this week. We also know a lot of you guys are traveling this week, so we will try and front load stuff as much as we can this week. Like we'll have some stuff on Wednesday and Thursday as well, because we know you want to throw an earbud in while your relatives are talking politics at the dinner table. But you're probably driving, and while you were going over the hills and through the woods, you would probably love to have a podcast to listen to. That's about Thanksgiving. That's not Christmas. No, it's about Thanksgiving. Fun fact. Anyway, so we'll try and get you a bunch of stuff earlier in the week. Michigan does their press conferences on Monday, so we'll have coverage of Michigan and what they've got going on Monday. Ohio State does their press conference on Tuesday, and then that's it. We do not have the normal Wednesday evening midweek interviews that we normally do. This is an every week, every year Michigan thing. It's just you get them once. You get Michigan on Monday, you get Ohio State on Tuesday, and then you see them on Saturday.
Yes or no? When we get to the Woody on Tuesday, it's time for war. We'll be playing. That
was an urban thing. We have not heard it's time for war in a long time. We have not heard it's time for war since 2018, and that was. I'm assuming people remember this, but that urban used to just play that over and over. It was just, like on an old CD player, you'd hit repeat and then you'd hit repeat one and you would just have that one song playing. That was it. It's time for war over and over. And we would just be in there for interviews and be sitting there for half an hour before interviews, and you'd start to lose your mind.
Yeah. It's psychological terror. It's warfare.
And that was something he did at Florida for the Florida State game. I mean, that was not a brand new thing for Urban at Ohio State. That was one of the welcome changes that Ryan Day brought to the Ohio State program when he took over.
Well, you hear some people talk about it, and that's one of the reasons Ohio State is losing, because he doesn't take the rivalry seriously enough. So there you go. Doug Shepard, thanks for the excellent show, guys. Are you guys going to tie the Michigan press conference into Michigan Monday? We're going to tie everything into everything.
Yeah.
We've done in the past. We probably will again. Like we'll look at Ohio State's running game against Michigan's run defense in one show, and then Michigan's pass defense against whatever. Like we're gonna break it down 6 ways from Saturday, if you will.
And we'll probably try and get Michigan Monday done. Maybe on Sunday if we can figure out the timing of we got to go watch the game. Unfortunately, they're not playing the night game tonight, where we can just watch it live, and so we'll try and get that early Monday. So that'll probably hopefully be done before
maybe Sunday night.
Michigan, maybe Sunday night, and then Michigan press conference is like 11 a.m. or noon on Monday, and then we'll have plenty of coverage on the Buckeye Weekly Podcast feed, plenty of coverage on the Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning Podcast feed, plenty of coverage at youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle, and of course, Tony, plenty of coverage at BuckeyeHuddle.com.
In fact, and if you want to join now, become a premium subscriber, $4.99 for your first month, and as you know, this first month, if you haven't joined up yet, is going to could be a whale of a month. So sign up now, say hello to us there. We would love to have you there. It is a great way to support what we do. So that being said, I want to thank you all for tuning in. We do appreciate it, and we will talk to you guys later.